What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Direct Snap, NFL Week 11. I'm your host, Connor Groel, as always, and going to talk about some NFL headlines, followed by the stats of the week and our Week 11 power rankings and predictions on today's show. I'll give everybody a minute or two to tune into the show. It's been a fun day for me so far. I know this is an NFL show, but have definitely been watching the college football being played today. Some really fun games. Just about an hour ago, Ohio State somehow managed to escape at College Park, Maryland, 52-51 in overtime. And Maryland, they were up for the majority of the game. Ohio State drove to tie it up in the final minute of that one. And Maryland almost got back into field goal range, but they took it to overtime. Ohio State scored. Maryland scored. Maryland went for two for the win. Guy was wide open. Quarterback missed the throw, unfortunately for them. That would have been their sixth win, get them bowl eligible. They'll have to do it next week against Penn State. But it really, up and down performance, and Ohio State, really struggling with the run defense in particular. Urban Meyer at multiple times during this game looked like he was going to have some kind of anxiety breakdown. We know he has his health problems in the past, but he was just about a nervous wreck, and who could blame him? They need to win out and get real lucky to have a shot at the playoff. Currently 10th in the country. And just a ridiculous game. A little earlier, not too much earlier, about an hour or so earlier before that one, Alabama wrapped up their game against the Citadel. They entered 54.5-point favorites, which I don't think you should ever open as that heavy favorites. Game ended 50-17, but it was not that much of a blowout, not by any stretch of the imagination. It was incredible. 10-10 at halftime. Citadel was really able to slow down the pace of that one. It was, a game. Citadel got the ball first to start the game and, held it for 7 minutes or so before punting, and Alabama scored. Then Citadel took their next drive, into the second quarter. Forced a 3-and-out from Alabama, scored a rushing touchdown. I don't think the Citadel threw it once in the game. I know they had one drop back and was sacked, but they're running that triple option offense. And for a lot of programs that don't come up with or don't play against teams or practice against, that type of offense, it can be difficult no matter, what your personnel is, no matter how successful you are. Which is why you've seen the Citadel be able to be successful against Alabama of all teams. And you saw Army almost knocking off Oklahoma, although Army is a very good football team this year, very underrated. I believe they're 8-2 at the moment. But Alabama was making some mistakes also in that game. He fumbled it a couple times, fumbled the kickoff to start the second half. And Citadel actually kicked the field goal to go up 13-10, got taken back for a false start, and they missed the re-kick. And I think that was the turning point in the game. And after that, Alabama rattled off 4 touchdowns in the third quarter, and we were basically done with that one. But 54.5-point favorites, and for a brief moment there, we looked like we could have seen an upset for the ages. It would have been definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest, college football upset ever. Talk about, again, 54.5 points. This is a Alabama team that the last 2 weeks, they shut out ranked SEC opponents. They had number 3 LSU on, and they were on the road, and they shut them out in the Mississippi State game. But enough about the college football. We will get into the show, but first off, if you were expecting the next episode of The Bubble coming up after the show, unfortunately, we're not going to be having an episode of The Bubble this week. I'll get you back next week with a bigger show. There was not a lot for me to talk about of this week. I've also been quite busy and going to head over to the UT Iowa State football game coming up after this show. So we'll do the bubble next week, get caught up on some tournaments and some big things going on and some teams having surprise starts, good or bad. Going to talk a lot about Michigan next week. I think that's a pretty safe bet. But we will go and get straight into direct snap, and we will start off with these Week 11 headlines, and we finally have an end to the Le'Veon Bell saga. Le'Veon Bell, of course, has decided to hold out rather than sign his franchise tender. He'd missed the whole rest of the season in this kind of, shoving match between himself and the Steelers. He wants a long-term deal. The Steelers don't want to give it to him. He's been sitting out in his place. James Conner has been doing a phenomenal job for the Steelers. One, I believe, top 5 in the NFL in scrimmage yards right now. He's been absolutely incredible in relief. And now, with Le'Veon Bell not signing this tender, he will now, forego. He had already foregone most of it, but the $14.5 million he could have made this season in favor of becoming a free agent and trying to get a better deal next year. And, this has been an awkward and a difficult situation for both parties. It has not really gone the way I think either side wanted it to go. But at the end of the day, the Steelers have James Conner doing fantastic. They've won like 4 or 5 games in a row. They're 6-2-1. They don't have to pay the big bucks to Le'Veon Bell, and obviously they weren't interested in keeping him on long term. So I think they're a winner here, and Le'Veon Bell, he could potentially be a winner as well because now he gets some freedom. I think it really all depends on what kind of a contract Le'Veon Bell can get in free agency is going to determine, if he comes out of this a winner as well. He'll be rested. Less miles on him as a running back as he heads into his age 27 season, I believe, next season. So always good to not have as many miles as far as touches with the ball in the NFL. He is missing out on a lot of money. I think at the end of the day, this is probably going to be a move that hurts him financially because I do not think he's going to be able to keep up his level of success for long enough to be able to make up that money. And now a year older Le'Veon Bell, I don't know who, and he didn't, he's missed a year. I'm sure he'll be an amazing running back when he comes back, but I'm not sure what kind of a contract he's going to be able to get. But if he is able to get the kind of contract he's looking for, 4 years in that, $60 million or whatever range, this could be a good move for him as far as, people talking about if he's a poor teammate because of this. It's a very difficult situation. I think the players were kind of fed up with him for a while, but I think at the end of the day, you have to kind of understand, he's a guy trying to make some bread, while he can. It is really funny when you look at his old tweets that are talking about, guys that aren't loyal or aren't, in it for the right reasons if they're holding out or whatever, and how that's come back to kind of bite him now. And again, it's been kind of just a tough situation all around. But I think at the end of the day, he knows what his value is, and the Steelers were not prepared to give him that. And it was very clear that they were just trying to, keep him along 1 year until they can toss him away. And, he's made a stand, and we'll see how he moves on next season. But right now, his relationship with the Steelers is over. They cleaned out the locker. They stole his stuff, took some shoes. And that'll be the end of Le'Veon Bell with the Steelers. Now, again, since we're doing this show for the second week in a row, and I'll make sure that changes, I'll make sure Direct Snap Week 12 takes place on its normally scheduled time on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. But considering we are doing the show on Saturday this week, we can't do the Saturday show without talking about the Thursday night matchup. And this was a really big game. I cannot overstate how big of a game this was. Because coming in, the Steelers were the Seahawks, home team, 4-5, and the Packers 4-1. The Seahawks, there's no way they're catching the Rams. They're fighting for a wild card spot. And, 4-6 is close to a death sentence for them. And the Packers, 4-1, didn't want to drop below 500 as well. 10 weeks now, 10 games into the season. And they're in third place in that NFC North, and it looks like it's going to be a fight between the Bears and the Vikings, and no one's really running away with it. The Bears at 6-3 in first place, but going to be very difficult for the Packers as well. And if you kind of loosely assume that the Panthers will be the first wild card team, then the Packers need to finish top 2 in that NFC North to have a shot at the wild card, and they need to keep competitive with the Vikings and the Bears and other teams like the Seahawks and potentially the Falcons and the Cowboys. And they got to stay ahead of those teams. So this is a really big matchup, and really heavy offense. Early on, this game goes 21-17 into the half, and then it slows down a little bit with a scoreless third quarter. Aaron Rodgers played, pretty well. Russell Wilson led a great drive to give Seattle a 27-24 lead, which would end up being the final score of this game. Seattle do get the win by 3 points. Happy I am because I took the Seahawks minus 2.5. But what came down to it at the end of this game was a controversial decision by Coach McCarthy for the Packers, choosing to punt with 4 minutes and 20 seconds left in the game at a 4th and 2 on their own 33-yard line. And a lot of people have been highly critical of this decision, and I'll be highly critical of this decision because this is another one of those that, when we talk about all these poor game management decisions, that I think a lot of coaches would have done this. I think a lot of coaches would have punted the ball, but when you look at the math, it's just not the right thing to do. It's a 4th and 2. You're down. First of all, you're giving the ball up with 4 minutes left. So there's a good chance, I don't even think they have any timeouts as well at this point. So there's a good chance that you're not going to get the ball back, and they don't. You have Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and it's just a 4th and 2. And I think, you're only trailing by a field goal. You have to go and you have to try to keep this drive going, And even if you miss it, if you punt the ball, you're going to need to get a stop pretty much immediately. But if you miss it, you also need to get a stop basically immediately. And, that means you're going to hold Seattle to, at least a moderately long field goal. And they could miss the field goal, but even if they make it, it's a 6-point game. And a touchdown and extra points still gives you the win. So you're in a situation where you can get it wrong. You can turn the ball over on downs, give Seattle the ball. But even if you get the ball back, you're still going to be in a position where you can win the game. So there's not a really, and maybe time on the clock could become a little more of a factor, but there's not a horrible downside to even, turning the ball over. So I am going to be highly critical of this. And I think especially when you have Aaron Rodgers, it's really tough to punt the ball in that situation. But nevertheless, the Seahawks win. Seahawks bring themselves back to 5-5, still in the wild card hunt. Now, the Packers are only half a game behind Seattle. They're still very much alive here, although there are going to be behind a few more teams in the NFCs because a lot of these, at least 1 or 2 of these 4 and 5 teams are going to win a game this week. The Falcons, the Eagles, the Cowboys. And since the Packers do have a tie, there's not going to be a tie break with Seattle that they would lose. But they still, they need to beat them over the next 6 weeks. And they're going to fall farther behind in the division. And now the path to the playoffs starts to become a little more difficult. And they're not out of it by any means. Not even if, 9-6-1. If they go 4-2, I think they have a pretty decent chance at making it. And reporters were asking Aaron Rodgers if he still has playoff hopes following the loss, and Aaron Rodgers called it a dumb question, and it is a dumb question because they're still very much alive, but that margin for error is decreasing, and they're getting passed up, and they have not they did not look great last season. They do not look particularly great this season. It looks a lot like, Aaron Jones as a running back has really busted out. He's been amazing the last few weeks. But outside of that, and Devontae Adams, the defense for this team has not been great. And it kind of just looks like Aaron Rodgers is there trying to do the solo carry. So we'll see if they can get together. Their next matchup will be at Minnesota, and that's going to be massive. They still play at Minnesota and at Chicago and home against the Lions. They play the whole division a second time, especially those 2 road games against the teams they're fighting with. Going to need to win those. And it's going to be a tough road for them, but I think they can still do it. But for now, we just say good on the Seahawks for sealing the deal on Thursday and moving themselves back up to 500. And they've already played their 2 games against the Rams, and they played them close both times. I think the Seahawks are an underrated team for sure. Already played the Chargers. So their schedule gets a lot easier down the stretch. So if you're looking at the remaining schedules for both of these teams, Seattle still has to play the Chiefs and the Panthers and the Vikings, which, those are 3 very difficult games. But they also have 2 games against the Niners and home against the Cardinals, which you would like to think are basically 3 wins. So you like to think the Seahawks are pretty much 8-5 if they don't mess up, and then they have 3 difficult games. So despite the fact they have 3 tough games and 3 easy games, I definitely would take that if I was Seattle, because you're pretty confident you can get to 8, and then it just becomes, can we get to 9, can we get to 10? And if you get to 9, you have a chance. If you get to 10, I think you do make the playoffs. So I like the Seahawks position a lot more in comparison to the Packers at this point in time. Moving on, this could be the game of the season. This is, I think, what I hear, only the 4th time in the last 20 years that this late into the season, 2 teams with 1 or fewer losses are playing each other, which is one of those statistics where, you think, who came up with that? But it should be a fantastic game. It was originally scheduled to be played in Mexico. But due to the field positions, I think they were playing that at Estadio Azteca. Due to the field conditions, they move it back to LA. And, hopefully the air quality will be a little better by the time of that game. But I think, for safety reasons, players got to come first. And I think this is a good decision, and I will applaud the NFL for making this decision. And a lot of Mexican fans, obviously only once a year really we get a game in Mexico, and this is going to be, this was an absolute, thriller of a matchup. 9-1, 9-1, 2 of the 3 best teams in the league. Potential Super Bowl preview, but I mean, if you haven't seen pictures of what that field looks like, the conditions are not great, and guys could be slipping, and guys could be getting hurt super easily. So that game is moved, and I think it is the correct decision. And the rest of our headlines here. Matt Barkley. That's right. Matt Barkley. You didn't think he was still in the league. Well, he got signed by the Buffalo about a week and a half ago. Just a week and a half ago. G-Mom and Pop watching the show. And, he takes the starting job from Nathan Peterman, which, let's be honest, is not a difficult thing to do. And Nathan Peterman got dropped, over the week. He's now released. I think he's working out for the Lions to potentially become Matt Stafford's backup quarterback, although I have no idea why any team would want Nathan Peterman. I think Kaepernick is still available. That's besides the point. So yeah, Matt Barkley, and he, really struggled. For his NFL career. He's another one of those USC quarterbacks, and he was a backup for a while, and he went 1-5 starting for Chicago in 2016, 8 touchdowns, 14 picks. But he gets another chance because, quite frankly, they had to trot someone out there. It wasn't going to be Peterman, and Josh Allen's hurt, and Derek Anderson's hurt. So you got to throw out someone. And they choose Matt Barkley. And to be fair, this is one of their more winnable games against the Jets. A 3-6 opponent. But Matt Barkley and the Bills hadn't got a passing touchdown out of a quarterback, I don't believe, since week 3. Or maybe Peterman got one the week before, I'm not sure. But their quarterbacks have been atrocious. And Matt Barkley goes and he throws a pair of touchdowns early in the game. And, he finishes 15 to 25. It's not going to blow you away, but 232 and 2 touchdowns, plays a good game. Shady McCoy is running all over the Jets, and they just tear them apart 41 to 10. And this is a Bills team, and you'll see in my stats section in a couple minutes. This is a Bills team that has had a couple incredible performances on offense, and then basically every other week they've just been horrible. Several games this season they failed to hit double-digit points. And when you allow 41 points at that team, you got to think it could be the end for Todd Bowles, Jets coach. It's been a bit of a tumultuous run for Todd Bowles. He had a good start in 2015, going 10-6. Did not make the playoffs, but 10-6. Since then, they have yet to win more than 5 games in a season, heading towards their 3rd straight year at the bottom of the AFC East. And my God, I thought he could have been fired at halftime. I think, Greeny made that joke, Mike Greenberg? Because they were down 30 points at halftime against the Bills. Against a team that hadn't scored 30 points in the last 4 weeks total, combined. So, pretty crazy that the Bills are able to pull off another one of these crazy performances, especially with the quarterback that just got there. But the defense really stepped up. And, Sam Darnold, not exactly killing it, but he's got nobody to help him. But Sam Darnold didn't even play in that game. Josh McCown was the starter in that one. Just $135 and 2 picks. Anyways, Des Bryant gets the season-ending injury 2 days after he signed with the Saints. There's a void for an aging receiver. Brandon Marshall takes it up. Brandon Marshall's 34. And, he said he knows what the takes are on him, that he's done. And I'll be honest, I think he's done. I saw him play with the Giants. Spent a couple years for the Giants and did next to nothing. I'm sorry, just 1 year last year with the Giants. A couple years with the Jets beforehand. But I kind of feel like he's done. He was released by Seattle. Tough year. He missed most of the year with the Giants. He did pretty well with the Jets in 15 and 16, but at this point, a 34-year-old receiver. And the good news is Drew Brees completes about 80% of his passes. What's up, Costa? And he's got all kinds of guys working around him. Not quite 5 years. Apparently, I didn't even realize he was this good. Apparently, he had 1,500 yards and 14 touchdowns and 15 with the Jets. But the last 3 years have been struggles, for Brandon Marshall. But, again, he's, if there's any team that's going to pick him up, the Saints, just looking for more weapons. They've got, dual running backs. They got 3 great receivers, and this is going to be a fantastic situation for him to try to give the Saints a little bit of value at the end of his career. He's never made the playoffs. He's now on the Super Bowl favorite, or one of them at least. So it's a good position for Brandon Marshall, and I wish him the best, and we'll see what he does. Stats of the week. Run through these quickly, get into the power rankings and the predictions. Andrew Luck has not been sacked in 4 games. That Colts offensive line, which has been notoriously bad, I think, for the last few seasons, really stepping up their game. And the Colts have won 3 straight. And even in that loss, 4 weeks ago, they threw up 34 points in a 42-34 loss to the Jets. And they've scored at least 29 points in each of these 4 games, gone 3-1. And when Andrew Luck has time to throw the ball, dude's a good quarterback. He's in the runnings for comeback player of the year. Having a pretty great year. Despite the fact that the Colts are 4-5, it's a lot better than 1-5. It's been a pretty great last few weeks for Andrew Luck and the like to keep the momentum going against the Titans this week. Raiders, just about the opposite. Derek Carr can't do a thing. No touchdowns for the team in 3 of their last 4 games. Reference that statted out the Bills early on. So here's the deal. We all know that shocking week 3 victory in Minnesota. Combine their points they scored in that one. They're 27 with 27 rather with the 41 they scored last week against the Jets. That's 68 points in their 2 big wins. But in their other 8 games in which they've gone 1-7, only 69 points total. That's less than 9 per game. So they're either really good or they're abysmal. And usually abysmal, but hey, at least they got a couple wins on the board, unlike the Raiders at 1-8. Last week's win against the Falcons was the Browns' first win in November since 2014. And finally, the Redskins and the Bears are both division leaders in the NFC, despite having scored the fewest amount of points of anyone in their divisions, both at 6-3, but led by 2 of the top defenses in the NFL this season. Heading into the power rankings. Started from the bottom. Raiders still number 32, and that's not going to change anytime soon, I don't think. They're playing the Cardinals this week. So if there was a time to do it, you got the second worst team in the league. So you got a shot. But I don't think so. I think the Raiders going to stick at the bottom. You just heard me talk about how atrocious they've been offensively. And I don't think it's going to change. Probably not for the rest of this season. I think at this point they're probably in full-on tank mode. I don't know who the number 1 pick would be for them. I don't think you want to go quarterback. But, we'll see. Cardinals, Niners dropping. Because they just keep losing, as do the Jets. But how about the Bills moving up 3 spots? And my Giants, the G-Men, picking up that win against the Niners with a clutch drive from Eli. He'll try to do it again this week against Fitzmagic and the Bucs. You want to talk about a stat? Fitzmagic and the Bucs had over 500 yards of offense against the Redskins last week and scored just 3 points. Got into the red zone 4 times. Maybe even 5, but 2 picks from Fitzpatrick and a turnover on downs at the goal line and a field goal. So only 3 points coming from all those red zone possessions. And I think that was a record. I believe that was the fewest amount of points ever scored by a team that had 500 yards of offense. But I don't remember. This was a week ago now. But, Bucs are not looking too great, and the Jaguars as well. 5 straight losses. Completely out of sorts. Almost got one against the Colts, but was not to be, although Fournette gave their offense a little bit of a boost. I mean, he only had like 2 yards per carry, but did score a pair of touchdowns, 1 receiving and 1 on the ground. Started to open up that offense a little bit in his first game back in like 2 months. Next up, the Browns get themselves back out of that bottom quarter after beating the Falcons, and the Falcons fall back in to this 3rd quartile. Other teams moving down. Dolphins couldn't do just about anything against the Packers. Lions, big losing streak for them. Broncos on the bye moving down because the Colts are up 5 spots with their 3-game win streak. Cowboys beating the Eagles. Now, Eagles and the Cowboys basically in the same spot. Falcons sandwiched in between them. Over here, not too much change outside of the Seahawks moving way up, as well as the Titans. Titans, talk about our last 2 weeks. Monday night, they win in Dallas, and then a huge home performance, crushing the Patriots in a way you almost never see occur. Final score on that one was 31-10, 34-10. And the Patriots couldn't get anything going. So the Patriots will be falling. They are now down to number 6, dropping a couple spots. Steelers and Chargers moving ahead of them. But I really like the Seahawks as well. Bengals in our spot. They had a really strong start at 4-1. They're just about at the point where another loss will really just send them tumbling down these rankings. Texans move back in, or move not back, but for the first time this season, do scratch the top 10. Following that Bengals loss, Redskins right there with them. Like that Brady wine joke. We also got the top 3 remaining unchanged: Saints, Chiefs, Rams. And Vikings, Bears still sticking it at 7-8, and they'll play each other this week. Who will I pick to win that matchup? Well, let's find out. Heading into the predictions, and hey, we're back over 500 against the spread. I never thought that would happen. I mean, not really, but we were way, way down under. We were in Australia against the spread for a couple weeks there. But, really good turnaround these last few weeks. I feel good. 94-53. Third straight week getting 10 wins in these straight ups. And that's pretty good when you got a lot of teams on bye. So let's head into it. First game, of course, starting out with the Sunday noon or 1 p.m. Eastern games. Because we already had that Thursday nighter, which I did get right. And by the way, this record does include me getting Seahawks -2.5 correct. So moving up. 94-53 and 72 and 71. Falcons are 3-point home favorites, and I'm going to take them for the win. Like them to have a bounce-back performance on the road against Cleveland. They really struggled. It was surprising. But we know the Browns are capable of doing this every once in a while, putting together a good performance. Cowboys on a little bit of a high, following that Eagles win. I just don't think they can keep with the offense of the Falcons. I like the Falcons to take this game. If you're still here, Costa, give me a shout-out with that Atlanta pick. Moving on. Bengals and Ravens. This is a close one. I was going to go Ravens, but Joe Flacco and his injuries, he's probably not going to play. It's probably going to be the first start of Lamar Jackson's young career. And first-time starter quarterbacks, as a general rule, I don't love picking them. So I'm going to take the Bengals. I'm surprised to see that line where it is, given the fact that Joe Flacco is probably going to be inactive. But I will take the Bengals to win this game. I'll give them 28-21, head up to 6-4, and send the Ravens really spiraling downward. Panthers taking on the Lions, 6-3 versus 3-6. Another game with teams with opposite records. They're 500 as a group. Panthers on the road, I like to take them over Lions. 30-21 will be my score on this one. Like Cam Newton have a strong performance in this game. Just like Mitch Trubisky did last week for Chicago against Detroit. Titans playing the Colts in yet another game. 5-4 versus 4-5. Opposite records. If the Colts win, they will both be 5-5. The Titans, though, one of the hottest teams in the league these last 2 weeks. But so are the Colts. I'm going to take the home team. Would not be surprised at all to see the Titans win this one, but this is a big matchup in that AFC South. Can the Colts move themselves back into a tie for second, or will this just be a 2-horse race with my bad pun of the week in the Colts matchup, a 2-horse race for the division between the Texans and the Titans. Giants, Bucks. Another matchup. Well, another kind of a loser matchup. Giants playing the Niners last week. They get the Bucks this week. Opportunities for them to pick up wins. Can they get 2 in a row? I'm not sure about that whole win 8 straight and make the playoffs bit. But to beat the Bucks, why not? 26-23. Bucks have, see, when was the last win? I think 3 losses in a row. Obviously, they put up a ton of yards, and Fitzpatrick basically goes for 400 yards every time he is out there. But transitioning that into points, and the Bucs defense is just awful. I like a big game out of Saquon Barkley. Texans, Redskins. Surprised to see the Redskins 3-point dogs at home. I'm very much surprised to see that. I disagree. I will take the Redskins to win this game, move up to 7-3. I think it'll be a low-scoring affair, 2016. I think it'll be close. But I do give that edge to Washington. How about this, though? The Texans have not lost since their Week 3 game against the Giants, which I was at. Pretty crazy. The Texans have now not lost in just about 2 months. Good on them. They'll still be first place in the division, at least tied with it, regardless of the result. But I do think they'll drop this one. Steelers, Jaguars. Jaguars are not the team we thought they were at the beginning of the year. 5 straight losses. I do not think they stand much of a chance at this one, regardless of the fact that they are home. I'll call 31-23 for the Steelers. I'll give Jacksonville 5.5, but no. Just no on Jacksonville right now. Raiders, Cardinals. Somehow I'm going to pick a 2-7 team to win. And I'm going to pick them giving Oakland 5.5. That's how bad Oakland is, man. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with Arizona or Oakland. Nothing good. And I don't expect them to get it together, even though this is going to be the most winnable game on their schedule. Broncos, Chargers, as we now head into the afternoon games, those 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Centrals, those 10 a.m. Hawaiis. I think that's right. I'm not sure. Actually. Oh, now I'm doing the thinking. Actually, maybe it's 9 a.m. Hawaii's. I don't even know. Regardless, Chargers favored by 7 here. I like them to take the win, but Broncos have been playing all their top matchups close. And once again, I think it'll be the Broncos playing a close one and just coming up a little bit short. 28-23 Chargers, my call. Eagles and Saints. Talk about a Super Bowl hangover. Eagles 4-5, heading to 4-6 after this one. Look, you're not going to play the Saints and give up fewer than 30. 34-24. Saints got all the weapons. They're just a beautiful team to watch right now. Sunday night, this is the big one for the NFC North. Winner will be the division leader as we go into Week 12. Each team playing their 10th game of the season in this one. I like this one to be close again. I am going to take the Bears, though, to edge it out at home. And our final one on Monday night, Rams hosting the Chiefs. 9-1 versus 9-1. I'm a bit surprised to see the Rams favored in this game by 3.5. I'm actually pretty confident, despite the fact I'm only calling this as a 3-point game. I'm pretty confident in the Chiefs. Pretty confident in the Chiefs. And yeah, Giants won last week and the Pats did not. So I'm going to take that to the bank. Pretty confident in this one. The Rams defense looks awful. You know, at the beginning of the year, they were firing on all cylinders. But over the last 3 weeks, they allowed 27 to the Packers, 45 to the Saints, 31 to the Seahawks. Can't stop much of anybody. I've also allowed 30 this season to the Seahawks in another game and the Rams. You know. So until we see a change from the Rams, they've played in just so many close games. And I know these are 2 of the best offenses in the league. The Chiefs, the Rams, the Saints, they're all throwing up well over 30 a game. But until I see the Rams start to do it on both sides of the ball. And it's funny because this is an inversion of the beginning of the season when the Chiefs couldn't stop anybody. But now the Chiefs look a lot better on that end, and the Rams don't. And for that reason, I think the Chiefs are going to be able to get that 1 or 2 stops that'll make the difference in this game. And I'll take them 34-31. That will be my last pick of the week. You see the teams on bye, the Pats, Bills, Dolphins, Jets, the entire AFC East, along with the Niners and the Browns. A lot of bad teams on bye. And the Patriots, I guess. Although the Patriots didn't look particularly great last week. If you got any questions for me, fire away. But that's it for me. Next week, we will get back on our normal schedule with a Wednesday direct snap and a Friday edition of The Bubble. I'll probably have a different name for that by that point. Wanted to do a college basketball show today, but not a ton for me to talk about. I've also been a little busy, running around a little bit. So we'll get back on track next week when we got a lot more to talk about as far as tournaments go. But how about Michigan? How about Buffalo? How about Duke? How about Kansas? Kansas has actually been a little shaky. How about at least, they've still been able to close out with some strong second halves. I've been Connor Groel as always. Yeah, Wednesday coming to you live from Houston. I'll be back in H-Town. But I'm Connor Groel as always. Until next week, see ya.